Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about probably the most common tactic when it comes to paddle, and the Spanish have a great expression for it, that they put someone in the fridge, and that means that that person gets cold. So for example, if I'm playing with my partner and they want to put me in the fridge, it means they hit all of the balls to my partner, and what that does is firstly it means I get cold, but also it means that they're focusing on one of the players. So in this video we're going to talk about the reasons for doing it and why it is a good tactic, but also how we get out of that situation if they're not hitting the ball to you.
Here's an illustration of the player being put in the fridge. This is only for this point, it's not for the whole match, but if you were doing this properly, you would use it as a tactic for the match, not just a single point.
There are a few reasons why it is good to do this. Now, I went with the British team to the junior championships and all of our players were from tennis, and tennis players are not used to doing this, so they end up changing the direction, and what that means is that we can't focus on the weaker player, because normally in a pair one of the players will either be weaker at the back or weaker at the front, or just weaker in general. And if you can concentrate the majority of your balls on the weaker player, it makes sense that you will win more points like that rather than hitting half of the balls to the stronger player. So that would be the first reason. Secondly, it helps our position if we are playing into the same corner. So for example, if the weaker player is in the forehand side and we hit that ball into the forehand side, I don't have to move unless I change direction. I can stay in this position, play the volleys back into that corner, my partner does the same, and we can both stay in our positions. And the third is, it's very good at giving you a target for during the point. And so by that I mean, if you're all over the place, you're hitting the ball there, short, lob, deep, whatever, then you haven't really got a focus for your game, and it ends up being that you don't really know what's happening. Whereas if you've got a focus, you say, right, at the back of the court, we're going to put this guy in the fridge, so we're going to hit to the other one, and we're going to hit all of our balls to that person. Then as a team, you've got an objective. To do this tactic effectively, you've got to consider two things. First of all, if you're hitting the balls to that corner, it's more than likely his partner's going to get frustrated and he's going to start trying to cover the middle of the court, which is fine because he's out of position, but if he's causing you problems and you hit a lob and he's coming across and still being aggressive and putting you under pressure, you want a way of keeping him in that corner. So the best way to do that is early in the point, maybe first, second, third ball, hit an aggressive volley into that corner, forcing him to cover his corner and then play the rest of the balls to his partner, because you need something to keep him in there so that you can focus the attention on him. The other thing to consider is that if you are focusing the attention on him, it's more than likely you're playing him in. He's getting practice, he's hitting a lot of balls, and he's going to start playing a little bit better. So once that happens and he starts playing a bit better, then you need to think about changing that tactic up, and you can always revisit it later in the game. Like if you change the tactic and then in the third set again you go back to him, you can then use that tactic of putting the other guy in the fridge and it will work quite well.
Another thing you can do is move that player around while focusing on them. Here you can see that the player's moved from the middle, he's played down short, angle, he has to move back, and eventually he gets run round, he gets frustrated, and his partner gets frustrated as well because it's difficult for him to help.
So we've discussed how effective that can be, but now we're going to look at how you can get out of that situation. So many times we have recreational players that come up to us and say, I played this match but I couldn't get involved in the game, they hit everything to my partner and it was really frustrating. So in the rest of this video we're going to talk about tips to get you out of that situation. So the first tip is for what your partner can do. So if I'm getting all of the balls and I want to get my partner involved in the game, one of the best things I can do is to lob down the line. It's very difficult off a good lob to hit a bandeja down this line rather than cross court. Even if they hit that bandeja down the centre of the court, after the bounce off the glass, it's going to go to my partner's court, so they'll be involved in the game. So one of the first things is to lob down the line. If they're still hitting this to you and you're still getting in trouble, you can then follow it up with a high lob and then get close to the net, because then you can block that next ball. Because if they know that you're already waiting for that ball down the line and all they have to do is hit a bandeja down that line like a soft one, if you hit the lob and you run in behind it and you get close enough to block, firstly it means your partner can cover the court behind you, which means then he's almost got these 3/4 of the court that he can cover, and also it means that they've got an even smaller target to aim for if they have to hit a good shot down the line when they see you coming to the net. Now this is probably your last resort to get your partner involved, so to hit that high lob and get close to the net so that they are forced to hit the ball to your partner.
Here you can see that when the lob's hit down the line, it's often that the player changes direction. Like this, even if it's off the back glass, it's often easier to change that direction. And it's a way of forcing those players back. Again, the lob down the line and the bajada is down the centre, but you can see that the player cross court can get involved. Again, the player puts under pressure, he hits another lob down the line, and the player changes direction because it's just much easier to do that with the bandeja.
Another thing you can try is switching sides on the serve. So often players play in Australian formation where I'm serving, my partner is on the same side of the court because then I'm going to run in to my side of the court to cover that side. But you can try switching just so that your opponents don't get used to hitting all the balls to one person. Another thing you can do is when you do serve is to aim for the body. If you come into the body, it's very difficult for them to hit a return accurately to your partner or to anywhere on the court if it comes into their body. Often players are serving into the spaces either off the glass or down the middle, and at the stretch it's a lot easier for them to direct that ball like that. But if you were to serve, for example, in towards my body or my right leg, it's difficult for me to angle that ball away off a serve like that. One of the difficulties with being in this position, and one of the reasons that it's so effective as a tactic, is the psychological side. You're under pressure, you're feeling pressure because all of the balls are coming to you, and your partner's getting frustrated because they're not touching the ball, and it's not long before, as a pair, you're really annoyed and you start making risky shots or going for too much. Now, one of the best ways to deal with this is to put it back on your opponents. So if possible, you need to keep calm, stay relaxed, and decide how you're going to counteract this. And it might be with these lobs down the line or hitting down the line because it forces your partner to get into the game. But also it might be, you might say to your partner, right, they're doing that to us, let's try and do that to them. So you start playing every ball to one person, and anytime your partner gets the ball, he again plays to the same person, and therefore you can almost bounce it back on them. That's probably one of the best ways to deal with it.